We'll start with a balance sheet. Letter on the front cover kind of explains what happened this past year, and a lot of activities, a lot of building going on. As Howard said, 2 feed mills were finished and are both running now and running well. Several fertilizer plants completed. We're in the process of completing our last liquid plant at Auroraville, so that should be done by this week, so ready for the spring season. So we're on schedule to roll into spring full bore. With that, we'll talk about the balance sheet, which is on page 3. You can see it starts with current assets. You can see we have total current assets of $339,593,000, up compared to last year of $317, so up $22.4 million. If you look at where the differences are this year, primarily the differences are in inventories. You can see our inventories are $220 million at the end of the year versus $189 last year. $30.7 million increase in inventories. The majority of that being grain. Right now we own about 53 million bushels of storage, upright storage in the grain industry. So we're the largest grain company in the state of Wisconsin. So it's a lot of kernels. Then we have investments in others. And you can see our investments are 96 million versus 93. Other assets 5.7 versus 6.6. So we've got a total there of 102,629 versus 100,158, or an increase of about $2.5 million in investments. Then we get into our property, plant, and equipment. You can see almost $309 million of property and equipment versus $280 a year before. So then we have accumulated depreciation. Almost $140 million of accumulated depreciation versus about $121 the year before. So that leaves us with depreciated assets of $168,890,000 versus $159,099,000, or an increase of about $9.8 million in assets from one year to the next. Total assets then are $611 million versus $576 million, increase of $34.7 million of assets from one year to the next. Then we have our current liabilities. Total current liabilities are $157 million versus about $141 million, up $16.7 million. Differences there, grain payables, $30 million versus $25 million, up $5.2 million. As I said earlier, large grain inventories and some deferred grain. So prepaid payments from the patrons, I should say patron prepayments, $56 million versus $56 million, which is very, very good. Shows that our patrons have faith in us. Our prepaids actually are up substantially. Earlier this month, we had like $78 million versus about $70 million from a year before, so that tells us some good things. We've got a lot of fertilizer, a lot of things sold for spring. Long-term liabilities are long-term debt, less the current maturity above $70 million versus $80 million a year before. As of today, we only have $4.3 million of long-term debt. Everything else has been paid down. This is all reinstatable debt, so we can borrow it when we need it, pay it down when we don't need it. So total long-term liabilities then are $75 million versus $85 million, down $10 million from the year before. Total liabilities then are $232,479,000 versus $225,849,000, up $6.6 million from a year ago. Patron equities, preferred equities, or our preferred stock program. You can see that has grown by $10 million. $116,942,000 versus $106,862,000. We continue to return a nice dividend on that. The last number of years it's been 4%, so we appreciate that investment in our company. Equity credits, $107 million versus about $99.8 million. Patrons refunds payable in equity, $17 million versus $16.9, so very close to where it will be a year ago. Should have talked about patronage refunds payable in cash too. About $11.5 million will be paid back in cash versus about $11.3 last year. So we'll have a slight increase there. Our general reserve, our rainy day fund as we call it, you can see is growing nicely, $137 million versus about $127 million. The total patron equities for 2016 was $378.63 million.